Today's lesson is a deal in ostriches. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to summarize a short story by the famous British writer H.G. Wells. This short story came out quite some time ago, way back in 1894, but still it's an interesting story. And H.G. Wells, of course, is a famous British writer. Oh, gee, what did he write? The Invisible Man.
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds. And
Time Machine.
Time Machine, indeed. He's known as the father of science fiction. At least some people consider him that. So he, of course, had lots of short stories. Are you a big fan of H.G. Wells, Mike?
Well, I've read those three books, the sort of famous ones, War of the Worlds, Time Machine, and The Invisible Man. Enjoyed them quite a lot, actually. Sometimes when you read old styles like this, he's, of course, famous for being one of the first science fiction writers, writing about time machines and aliens from other planets. Sometimes those older books can be a little dull compared to some of the modern, exciting science fiction adventure books and movies, but I found his to be not so bad, and the good thing is they're not very long. So even if you're not particularly enjoying the book, it isn't too much of a long effort to get to the end. But I've never read any of his short stories, so I found this one quite interesting. Also, because it's not really a science fiction. It's a little bit more of a mystery story, something we don't always associate with H.G. Wells. So let's find out, what is the deal in ostriches?
A deal in ostriches.
A British ship was sailing from India to London, packed with both cargo and passengers from all walks of life, one of whom was an Indian gentleman named Padishah. From the moment he boarded the ship, he had been boasting of his wealth, illustrated by the giant diamond in the center of his turban. It attracted attention, including that of 5 ostriches being kept above deck, and as Padishah passed by them, one plucked it off the turban and swallowed it.
Okay, so again, the title of our article for today, or of this short story, is A Deal in Ostriches. Now here, there is a deal being made concerning ostriches. Remember, an ostrich is a very large bird that can run fast, but it can't fly. And, of course, the internet is full of videos of ostriches doing silly things to people. They like to pick at people and take things away from them, which is what happens in this particular story.
There you go. It's very interesting. What is the deal with ostriches? We can also talk about, what's the deal? Just saying, what's going on? What's the situation? What's happening? So what is happening with the ostriches? I guess we're going to find out in our story, which begins... A British ship was sailing from India to London, packed with both cargo and passengers from all walks of life, one of whom was an Indian gentleman named Padishah. So this is a story from, the Victorian times, when people traveled all across the oceans of the world by ship. So this was a ship bringing people from India to London. And of course, a ship carries lots of stuff, including people and cargo. This ship was packed with cargo and passengers. When we say something is packed with something, that means it is full with that type of thing. Your suitcase could be packed with gifts for your family if you're going back home after being away for a long time. It's very, very full. In other words, the ship was very, very full with both cargo and passengers. Well, passengers, of course, would be people. If you buy a ticket and get on the plane, you are a passenger. And the cargo is the stuff that the plane carries underneath where the passengers sit. It could be, of course, luggage. It could also be boxes of stuff. Who knows what kind of cargo is carried by trains, trucks, ships, airplanes. But when we're moving stuff around the world, either to sell or personal items, anything that goes in a box that's packed in the bottom of a plane or a boat, that would be the cargo. These passengers, back to them, they came from all walks of life. This is a great expression that just basically means all types of people. So you had Indian travelers, you had British government people or military people coming home, you had kids, you had tourists, you had circus performers. Who knows who these people were, but they were rich, poor, white, brown, all colors, all shapes, all genders, all types of people, all walks of life. And one of the passengers was an Indian gentleman named Padishah. Of course, it would make sense for Indian people to be on a boat from India India to London.
And from the moment he boarded the ship, he had been boasting of his wealth, illustrated by the giant diamond in the center of his turban. Okay, so of course, if you are rich, if you're a gentleman, you're supposed to behave yourself. I guess you're supposed to be humble, but we know that people with lots of money love to flaunt their wealth. So of course, he was boasting of his wealth. And if you boast, that means you let everybody know what a great person you are. Gee, I own so many mansions all across India and in England and in France, and I have all these expensive cars, and I have all this jewelry. Boy, am I a rich guy. You better be nice to me.
Very, very interesting. And of course, his wealth, which he was boasting about, was illustrated by the giant diamond in the center of his turban. Wow, this guy is a rich dude, and he wants the whole world to know it. So he is boasting about his wealth, talking about all the land and all the palaces he owned. And there was also something you could see on him. His wealth was illustrated by the giant diamond in the center of his turban. When something is illustrated by something, that basically provides a really good example of what we're talking about. So Bob's skill in sports was illustrated by the fact that he had the fastest time for the 100 meters in the whole city, or something like that. That's a good example. That's a good demonstration. Something physical you can point at or see that sort of demonstrates or gives you evidence of some other truth. So he's really rich. How do we know? Well, he talks about how rich he is, but also he's wearing a giant diamond in the center of his turban. And a turban, though that's a hat, it's headwear, but it's basically wrapped fabric in the Indian kind of style. And, it's also something that comes from the sort of subcontinent of India, a type of headwear that people wear. Then in the middle of his turban, imagine a man with a beautiful hat, and in the middle of the hat or the turban above the forehead is this beautiful giant diamond.
And of course, it attracted attention. Lots of people noticed that, wow, you've got that big diamond in the middle of your turban. You must be one rich guy. And of course, that attention was not only caught by people, the other passengers, but it also was caught by 5 ostriches, and they were being kept above deck. I don't think the ostriches were interested in the diamond because it was really expensive. They probably thought it was pretty cool because it was bright and shiny, and maybe the ostriches thought it was something to eat. But anyway, the ostriches were kind of obnoxious, and they were running around, running wild. And as Padishah passed by them, one of the ostriches plucked it off the turban and swallowed it. So yes, indeed, one of the ostriches probably thought the diamond was something to eat. And if you remove something quickly from something, we use the verb to pluck. For example, if you work in a chicken processing plant, of course, the chickens go in there and you want to prepare them for slaughter. First of all, you need to pluck the feathers off of the bodies of those chickens, and then you can cut them up and slice them up so they can be prepared and be made into chicken fillet or gongbao jiding or whatever. So in this particular case, though, the ostrich plucked the diamond off of the turban, and then the ostrich swallowed it. Well, that sounds kind of dangerous because diamonds are one of the hardest substances known to mankind. Wouldn't it kind of cut the ostrich's throat as it was swallowing it?
That's a good question. Hopefully it wasn't cut with too many sharp angles on it, or that ostrich would be a very unhappy bird.
Indeed, but that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's continue to summarize our featured story for this month, A Deal in Ostriches. Let's find out what happens next.
In the resulting chaos, the ostriches ran this way and that, making it impossible to tell which had swallowed the diamond. Padishah was furious and demanded the diamond's return, but the ostrich's keeper refused to interfere with the birds. He also had no power to turn the birds over to Padishah, despite the fact that they were now in possession of Padishah's property.
大家好，第二部分我们看到动词 interfere， 指干预或是干涉。举例来说 ，People accused the rival country of interfering in the election。人们指控那个敌对国家干预选举。或是 James warned his friends to not interfere in his upcoming fight。James 警告他的朋友不要干涉他接下来的打斗。另外补充这个字的名词 interference。 interference interference 意思是扰乱或是干涉，像是 The author prefers to write with little interference from the outside world. 这个作家喜欢在不受外在世界干扰的环境下写作。也可以说 Samuel objected to his mother's interference in his private life. Samuel 反对他妈妈干涉他的私生活。接着我们看到单字 possession， 这个字是不可数名词，指拥有或是具有。例如 The police arrested Dylan for possession of stolen goods. 警方以持有赃物的罪名逮捕了 Dylan。或是 I don't have a copy of the contract in my possession. 我这里没有那份合约的副本。另外，这个字也可以做可数名词使用，意思是财产。我们可以说 Charlie left for Mexico, leaving all his possessions behind. Charlie 抛下所有的财产，动身前往墨西哥。也可以说 Peter sold all of his possessions, cut off all his hair, and became a monk. Peter 卖掉所有的财产，剃光头发，成为僧侣。再补充 possession 的动词 possess, P-O-S-S-E-S-S, possess, 意思是拥有或是具有。像是 The museum possesses a large number of 18th century paintings in its collection. 这间博物馆的馆藏中拥有大量的18世纪画作。或者 She possesses a strong will to succeed. 她具有追求成功的坚强意志。
Okay, so again, so far we've got Padishah, a rich guy from India traveling on this boat, which is sailing to London. And there are lots of people on the boat. There's lots of cargo there, and we've got some ostriches. One of the ostriches noticed that big diamond in the middle of Padishah's turban. The ostrich plucked it off of the turban and swallowed the diamond, and here's what happens next. In the resulting chaos, the ostriches ran this way and that, making it impossible to tell which had swallowed the diamond. So indeed, the ostriches were running all over the place. They were running wild. So, of course, we have this resulting chaos. No, this word is not pronounced chaos, as I thought it was pronounced when I was a kid. I asked my dad, Dad, what does the word chouse mean? A little Roger. That is pronounced chaos. And of course, that refers to a pretty wild and uncontrolled situation. Of course, it's chaos in Ukraine, of course, as a result of the war there. It's just a crazy, uncontrolled situation, and people are going nuts.
Yeah, definitely a dangerous situation when there's chaos, but some people might say also a situation that provides opportunity too, and we'll see how it plays out in our story. So these ostriches are running all over the place. One of them swallowed a diamond. People are yelling and shouting and screaming, trying to make themselves safe, probably from the ostriches. So in the resulting chaos, the ostriches ran this way and that. They're basically out of control, running around on this ship, making it impossible to tell which had swallowed the diamond. Well, yeah, that's true. Ostriches all kind of look the same, don't they? They don't have different colored feathers. They're all black and white. They're all about the same height. So which one swallowed the diamond? It was very easy to lose track. Well, the Indian gentleman who just lost his expensive diamond, he obviously is not a happy person. Padishah was furious and demanded the diamond's return. But the ostrich's keeper refused to interfere with the birds. So the man who lost the diamond, he's very angry, he's furious, he wants his diamond back, he demands its return. But the ostrich's keeper, the person who was kind of in charge of the ostrich, we might also say the ostrich handler, like a dog handler is someone who handles dogs for maybe the police or maybe for the army or maybe for show business and movie making. They're the person in charge and responsible for the animals. Well, this person refused to interfere with the birds. So Padishah is saying, start shaking those birds or make them throw up my diamond and give it back. And this ostrich handler, the expert in these bird birds who's traveling with them says, no, I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to bother the birds. I'm not going to try to, make them be sick or make them go to the bathroom or do anything special to try to get your diamond back. We don't even know if one of the birds swallow it. We don't know which bird might have done it. I'm not going to bother or interfere or mess with the birds to get your diamond back. I'm sorry, Mr. Padishah.
And, of course, the keeper says, or at least here it says about the keeper, he also had no power to turn the birds over to Padishah, despite the fact that they were now in possession of Padishah's property. So here we've got the phrase to turn something over, which means to give them to him. And that was even though it was true that they were now in possession of Padishah's property. Possession just refers to when you actually have something, you have possession of something. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. It's time to move on to the third part.
Word swept across the ship about the incident, reaching a man named Potter, who at the ship's next stop sent a message to the ostrich's owner in London, offering to buy all 5. The offer was accepted, and when Padishah found out, he threatened Potter with legal action, but the deal was done. Potter's plan was to kill the birds and keep the diamond for himself.
Okay, let's wrap things up for today's summary. It continues by saying, word swept across the ship about the incident. So people knew about this incident or this thing that happened. Swept across, of course, is the past tense of sweep across, which means it basically spread throughout the ship. And people knew about this ostrich stealing that diamond. And then it reached a man named Potter, who at the ship's next stop sent a message to the ostrich's owner in London offering to buy all 5. So Mr. Potter learned about this incident, and then when the ship stopped somewhere between India and London at a port somewhere, they had communication facilities there, maybe a telegraph or something like that, and he sent a message to the owner in London saying, hey, I want to buy your ostriches.
Now, of course, the owner in London doesn't know anything about this missing diamond, but Mr. Potter does, so he's thinking, hey, I'll just send a message to the owner in London saying, I just saw your ostriches. I fell in love with them. I'd like to buy them. But of course, not mentioning that he's also hoping to buy the diamond that is in the stomach of one of the ostriches.
Now, the offer was accepted. Okay, I'll sell them to you. And when Padishah found out about this offer, about this business deal, he threatened Potter with legal action, but it was too late. The deal was done. So, indeed, I'll sue you. I'll find a lawyer and sue you for that diamond that's in the stomach of one of those ostriches. But, hey, it's too late. Potter's plan was to kill the birds and keep the diamond for himself. Maybe that's what I would have done if I were Mr. Potter, or I would have put them someplace and wait for them to defecate and look for the diamond in their feces, but that was not part of this particular story. Okay, that brings us to the end of our summary for today. Let's listen now to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分第一句写到 The ostriches ran this way and that, making it impossible to tell which had swallowed the diamond. 这些鸵鸟四处奔跑，使之难以分辨究竟是哪一只吞下了钻石。好，句中的 making 它是由 which made 简化而来的。那这边是要介绍 make it 加上受词补语再加不定词 to be 的句型。那我们先来看看 make 加受词加受词补语是表达使某人或某事物成为什么，变得怎么样。动词 make 在这边呢是表达使变得，使成为。那么受词补语可以用名词或形容词用来对受词做补充说明。像我们说 Listening to music makes me happy， 听音乐使我变得快乐。这边我们就用到形容词 happy 来当受词补语。那特别注意的是，如果受词是不定词 to be， 这时候不能写作 make to be 再加受词补语哦，我们会改用虚受词 it 来代替这个受词的位置，再把真正的受词 to be 移到句尾，那么句型就变成 make it 受词补语再加不定词 to be。举例来说 The heavy rain made it impossible to continue the game. 大雨使得比赛无法继续。好，那课文第3部分的第一句写到 Word swept across the ship about the incident. 这个事件的消息很快就在船上传开。那么句中的 word 在这边是指消息、讯息，它是当不可数名词来用。我们说 sweep across 或者是 sweep through， 它是表达传遍啊，或者是横扫、席卷的那种意思。Sweep 在这边是不及物用法，后面常常会接介系词 across 或者是 through 去表达可能像是风啊、海浪啊，或者是火势等等，它快速而且强劲的扫过某地。好，那常常也会用比喻的方式来使用哦。举例来说 The pandemic swept across the world 就可以用来表达疫情横扫全世界的意思。那我们顺便来学几个跟 sweep 相关的用语。第一个是 sweep somebody off somebody's feet。这并不是说把某人的腿扫过去，也不是说什么扫堂腿把人家绊倒的那种意思哦。Sweep 它有席卷或是风靡的意思。Sweep somebody off somebody's feet 这个片语是用来表达把某人迷得神魂颠倒，使某人一见倾心，彻底的爱上了。举例来说 Haley was swept off her feet by his charm。 Haley 被他的魅力迷得神魂颠倒了。第二个补充的是 sweep something under the rug。 在英式英语里面可能会用到 sweep something under the carpet。 那这样的片语字面意思是把点点点扫到地毯下，那是用来表达掩饰、隐瞒，可能像是要掩饰某个问题啊，或者是困难等等而不想去面对。好，举例来说 We need to fix the problem。Instead of sweeping it under the rug， 我们得解决问题，而不是掩饰它。第三个补充的是 sweep something aside， 或者是用 sweep aside something， 字面意思是把点点点扫到旁边，那这可以用来表达搁置一旁、不予理会或者是置之不理的意思。例如 His suggestions were swept aside，他提出的建议被置之不理了。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Cargo. Please be patient while the workers load the cargo onto the ship. Boast. Janine boasted about her son's new job to all her friends. Illustrate. These cases illustrate how important it is to wear a helmet on a motorcycle. Chaos. The protests turned violent, and chaos quickly spread throughout the city. Interfere. Try not to let your personal problems interfere with your work. Possession. How did you come to be in possession of Matthew's watch? Incident. Queenie replayed the incident over and over in her head.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.